Hi everyone, thanks for joining us today. This is Carl Dreschel. I will be your host. Please note that we cannot hear you as you're muted. If you have questions, I would ask that you use the chat window during the presentation. The presentation will last about 30 minutes, and once we complete, we'll address any questions sent in during the presentation and have an open Q&A session afterwards. Okay, let's get started. This webinar is focused on what's new in GSX Monitor and Analyzer version 10.1. With that now, let me introduce my colleague Steve Bystrand, Senior Vice President of Global Sales and Business Development. Steve?
Everybody, thanks, Carl. Welcome to our worldwide audience. And this is a what's new presentation, so I just want to make sure we set the proper expectation level. In 30 minutes, we certainly cannot go through the depth and breadth of everything the GSX Monitor and its sister program, Gsx Analyzer, are capable of doing. If you're not particularly familiar with GSX Monitor and GSX Analyzer, I would suggest that after hopefully we whet your appetite in this session, that you contact either myself or one of our global sales team to do a one session, and then potentially even do a trial install so that you can test it in your own environment. So again, we're going to mainly concentrate on is what is the new functionality. But if you have questions, don't hesitate to type them in the chat window, and then the moderator, Carl, will bring those up when we get to the Q&A period at the end. Okay, so let's kind of give ourselves a little bit of a template of what we're going to talk about today. What's new in GSX Monitor and Analyzer in this most recent version that was released a couple of weeks ago. So first of all, for all platforms, regardless of we're using GSX Monitor to monitor and Analyzer to report on, there are some certain commonalities, and we'll walk through each of those. So there's something we've added called configuration wizards, which I'll show you in just a moment. We're going to talk about some added functionality or enhancement we've done for time zone support, which will be very interesting specifically to customers that have teams all over the world and a widely distributed network. And we've changed the framework of the way the monitor main view looks and kind of the structure of the user interface, because we keep adding functionality and don't want to kind of creep off the page so you have to scroll all over the place. Today's session was mainly pitched to folks Domino marketplace, so we're going to talk about the new stuff that's been done in Domino, specifically Domino change management and new consolidated statistics view for Domino. But that doesn't mean that the folks in the Microsoft space won't be interested in this session, because we're certainly going to talk about Sharepoint, as somewhere around 40% of the Domino clients that we have are also utilizing Sharepoint as one of their tools, as well as Exchange. Moving on to Exchange, and we'll come back to talk about Analyzer. There's been added functionality for Exchange. Some of the people that I know I saw on the registration list are in the midst of a migration from Domino to Exchange. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the new functionality that's been added there. And then I kind of skipped over Analyzer. There's been some additional functionality added in to Analyzer for forecasting and capacity planning, and we'll go from there. I just see some traffic on my other screen. I think, Carl, if you can handle letting the folks know in the chat window how to dial into the audio, I'd appreciate that. So we're going to continue on and talk a little bit about GSX Monitor and the change management and configuration wizards and all the good new stuff that we've added. So let's pop into GSX Monitor itself, and this is the user interface and the dashboard that people have somewhat grown used to seeing. And if you're not used to this, we're looking at 4 columns of servers of varying types, perhaps all over the world, and each one of these little bars represents a server, and the lights, of course, will tell us something about the condition of that server. So if you're completely new, that's what we're looking at here. Across the top, this is what we're talking about, the new monitor framework. You'll know buttons if you're an existing client that you've never seen before, like scenario, spot check reports. So what are these? So under scenario are 2 of the tabs that you were used to seeing, mail routing and replication, but we've added SharePoint scenarios. What is a scenario? It's a user-level transaction that we repeat over and over and over again on some cycle to confirm that the server-side resources that are supposed to provide that service to the users indeed are safely allowing us to create what people call a synthetic transaction over and over again. So we're having 3 tabs and having this go so huge that you have to roll over. We're trying to consolidate some things into topics. Just like in performance, we have performance of Domino databases, performance of quicker pieces, and performance of specific SharePoint sites. Okay, spot check reports are various types of reports that allow me to do checks on ACL, database size, Domino agents that are running, and then databases based on their usage or lack thereof. So what we're doing here is adding and trying to consolidate this view to make it a little bit easier for you as an administrator of the tool GSX Monitor to navigate more easily. Another we've added is something called configuration wizards. So this is initially intended for when you add a new server to take you through all the settings within GSX Monitor so that you can more easily set those up and, of course, create a template so that you can have multiple servers that follow the same rules. But in our support team over the last few months has had the same conversation many times with clients where they did not know a feature was added in a subsequent or rather higher version release, and there's functionality within GSX Monitor that we want to also make the configuration wizard something that an existing client could use. So what I've done is I've right-clicked on one of my servers on the main view, and it's brought me into the GSX Monitor Wizard. Now, this server is already set up, so I don't have a next, finish the typical wizard format that you would have, which you would indeed have if you were adding a new one. But it allowed me to go through every one of the tabs and to very quickly see, well, wait a minute, why didn't I never turn on log scanning? I obviously already have in this case because it's enabled, but let's pretend you come to this tab or you come to the maintenance tab and you see you've never established maintenance windows, or you turned on the cluster replica alerts and this is indeed a clustered server. So this is kind of a way that we've set up for you and this is mainly targeted, or at least this discussion point right now, is targeted our existing clients. How can you most easily maximize the functionality and the value you're getting out of GSX Monitor? And the idea here would be to come to one of your mail servers and go through each one of these, and then you could turn things and then apply that to all the mail servers in a similar way. Servers of different types. If you're adding a new server, if you're a new customer, of course you'd go through these screens sequentially and click next, finish till you're done. And then you follow through this this wizard, you can be sure that you've taken advantage of all functionality that GSX Monitor has to offer for a certain type of server. Obviously, we picked the Domino server in this example, but if I right-clicked and said I wanted to look at the server settings tab for Bez, I'm going to get slightly different things because Bez has different functionality. So here now I'm setting up, what Bez services I want. How can I connect to the SQL database? So it's obviously context specific and allows you to scroll through each type of server and make sure that you've taken advantage of all the different possible probes that you might have available to you to do that. Also, we talked about time zone support, and actually I just happen to think of that because we're on this screen here. It's telling me that we're using the local time zone of GSX Monitor. So our existing clients that are on this call know that we only had one time zone previously to version 10.1, and you have to say that, let's say our server that's monitoring all our other servers is in U.S. East Coast time. And if you are on U.S. West Coast time, you would have to interpolate that 3-hour difference when defining either your business hours or your maintenance windows for a particular server. So if you had one installation of GSX Monitor, South Africa, or where it happens to be, right, you have to interpolate your difference to the time zone, and that is now no longer the case. I can set up. Where in the world was I here? Here we go. So say that this server is in a particular time zone, in this case U.S. East Coast, but I could say that I'm in Kuwait and I'm GMT +3, okay, and then the business hours are going to be the actual hours in Kuwait for that specific server, even though GSX Monitor might be still in U.S. East Coast time. So you no longer have to interpolate your difference from those hours. Now, I caution you, if you're an existing client, you've already set this up and you've interpolated those time zone differences. Let's say it's you're in U.S. East Coast time and you have a server in Europe, so you've interpolate 6-hour difference already, and you turn on the local time zone, you're going to have to uninterpolate that 6-hour difference. So it's only be beneficial to an existing client when you're adding a new server. For the folks here that are on the call that have never used this before, it's just going to be easier for you to set this up than it was for people in the past. Okay, and just to recap, the configuration wizards are intended for two purposes. When you're adding a new server, to be able to make sure you take advantage of all the server settings, because on the server settings page, there's all these different pages depending on the server type you would have to go to. So for Domino, I'd scanning, I'd have mail, I'd have log scanning, and I'd go into each of these pages to do some modifications to make sure I'm utilizing all my things and all my settings to fullest advantage. To do that, but the wizard makes it a lot easier to go in here and just go page by page and make sure you've got everything turned on, or maybe you want it turned on. At least you've made that value decision, and for whatever particular reason you did not want to do that. Okay, I'm going to quickly up here to the statistics view. In subsequent releases, so if you're a customer who's on version 10 and thinking about going to 10.1, or maybe you already have migrated, we kept adding since I think 9.3 on the statistics tab, other platform-specific pages. Previous to that, we would all of our periodic statistics, so the byproduct of all of our scanning would be collected here, and in kind of a big spreadsheet, you'd be able to look at all the statistics that we've gathered by our own scans, as well as the data we've gathered from the Domino server or the Exchange server or the Bez SQL database, etc. And like for Bez, you could right-click here and go into user statistics, but we decided that there was just too much data and we wanted to consolidate everything in one place. So this is what the kind of spreadsheet version looks like, where I've got Domino scanning and Domino servers, the current data, today, this week, etc. So the statistics tabs allowed you to go into various places to see specific information at a particular timestamp. So I've actually clicked on the Domino statistics tab. So here, if I pick a particular server, I can see everything I want to look at about this specific server in one place. So I know what version it's running, I know what the most recent access latency was, I know how much RAM it has and what my RAM utilization is. I could see all my Domino tasks, if they're being utilized, and what probes are set up. So I've got replication up in their current status with green lights or red or whatever they happen to be. I can see my CPU utilization. I can see the narrative of the most recent scan. I can see the amount of mail traffic. In this case, it's a demo server, so I don't have anything, but you'd be able to see volumes, if you will, daily, weekly, and monthly for that server. I could see my disk storage. In this case, I only have one disk, but if you have multiples, you could see those. And then each and every one of my Domino tasks. In this case, I'm only scanning one task, but I can see the task status, the downtime, the last runtime, and what the console status of that task, all in one place. Now, formally, the only thing you could really do is, of course, see your red lights, and then you could actually put some stats next to this LED, but you could only put 2 of them there before the user interface gets a little bit full. So we've tried, again, to consolidate a way for you to look at each and every platform right there. Now, Domino Change Management is another new piece of functionality. It's actually a new module that's been added to GSX Monitor, and its intent is to allow you to look at changes made on a specific server. So I'm just going to open up the rule settings here, and in this example, I don't have checks made to the notes any file enabled, but if I did, I'd be able to put in a script, or it's going to look for specific things that we want it to look for, and it's going to produce a report. I enabled changes made to the name address book. Okay, I've selected all of them. In this case, perhaps, let's say I only want to look at groups, so I can select that if I want to look at changes to groups or specific groups. Okay, and I can can even exclude certain fields if I want. So if there's a field that we don't want to see, so this wizard allows you to sort of tune this, but the intent is that GSX Monitor is going to show you the changes made in that scan interval. So whatever this interval we've set, it's going to continuously tell you those changes. I mean, it's going to do those changes either in report format, or indeed it can send an alert. So if you tune this and you've got a rule that's looking for some very specific changes that are a security concern for you, could actually kick off an alert just like you could for any alert conditions GSX Monitor recognizes. Let's jump over into PowerPoint because I have a sample report here of what some of the output of this looks like. In this case, I'm looking at the report that I would get that it gets emailed to you that's showing me that the members field changed on a particular date, what the old value was and what the new value was, and then who is the list of the change ors. Okay, so in this case, if we had a 24-hour period, hypothetically, there might be more than one change or, so we're going to have a list of all the suspects, if it will, of who we're going to go out and talk to find out what they're doing and why this change is in its current state. Actually, at Lotusphere, some of our customers felt that the nomenclature here was a little cryptic, so in a subsequent release, we're going to streamline kind of the machine language, if you will, that we're showing right here to make that a little bit easier to use. Again, to recap, what change management is intended to do is allow you to look for changes either to the node file or any of these server documents, including groups in the names.nsf directory, essentially, and look for the specific changes you want on the cycle you want. So it's pretty powerful stuff. I mentioned that about 40% of our Domino client base has Sharepoint. So again, even though this is a Domino that was intended to mainly focus on Domino changes rather than exchange changes, a lot of people in the Domino world are indeed using Sharepoint. So Sharepoint monitoring was added back in version 10, as I hope most of you know, and then in this version we've added this concept of scenario statistics, scenarios that we repeat to the Sharepoint world, which previously we had not done. In version 10, you were able to call for a Sharepoint site on a cyclical basis over here on the Performance tab. Now here, a Scenario tab, we've added typical user things that users do on a repetitive basis. So, because we don't have a lot of time, we won't be able to go into depth into each one of these, but users create sites, right? So we can set up a probe where GSX Monitor is going to create a site and then delete it right afterwards and do our own housekeeping on a repetitive basis, in case every 5 minutes. And the intent here, by performing these different scenarios, and again, we're speaking specifically about Sharepoint right now, but we also do them for Domino and for mail, regardless of platform, by sending a test mail message, etc. Right? So what we're doing is we're doing a synthetic transaction just like a user, over and over and over again. And if we can do it, then what's happened? One is we establish that if we can, other users probably can as well. And the other thing we do is we establish some metrics on what the user experience is. So for each of these transactions, whether it's a mail transaction, scenario is being performed over and over again, replication between Domino servers, or as we're speaking about now, individual Sharepoint functions, we are collecting the statistics on how long it takes to do this. So it's not simple up-down. It gives a glimmer, if you will, of what the users are experiencing out there in the wide world. And many of our clients put multiple GSX Monitor installs in different places in their topology, so they can have maybe a more vivid picture of what their users are experiencing all over. So let's just go through this again. Create a site, a blog post. It's a very typical thing that Sharepoint is used for, where you have internal wikis and blogs, and users are allowed to make changes to those so that information can be disseminated and used by a broader audience. A new item of whatever type. Upload a document. Now, upload a document, and again, we're getting some metrics on this. One of the questions we would get asked is, well, how big is that document? And you get to determine what the test document is, so you can make it large in between, whatever you want it to be be and define what that document size is, and then of course the success, failure, and the metrics to do it become much more vivid, because now you know that this is a 5 megabyte document that we're uploading to really test our SharePoint server and to see what the users are experiencing if they're trying to do that, and is the latency, okay, outside of the acceptable threshold, right? So in case we're doing it once an hour, but we're setting a 10,000 millisecond threshold, that it takes longer than that, even though it succeeds, it's still a failure, and we are still going to invoke the alert to let the administration team know that the users are going to be unhappy because it's taking way too long to do whether one of these transactions we may be attempting to do. So the concept of an alert threshold for all of the different scenarios, it's not just does it succeed or fail, and clearly we would want to know if it fails, but we also want to know if it fails to meet the business's threshold for acceptance. And again, we're doing that for each of these different things. Create a meeting. Concept, right? Search for services. Use a search service to search for a document. To resolve users' credentials, so that we'll make sure that users can really log in and do things. And to test Excel services. So we're doing each of these again repetitively, sure that our users can do that. Talk about Exchange very much here, but let me just go to the list that we had in our PowerPoint just to give it a very brief discussion. As hopefully you know, in prior versions of GSX Monitor for maybe 3 years now, I think it's actually about 3.5 years now, we monitored Exchange Mail for 2003 and 2007. And then about 9 months ago, maybe a year ago, we added Exchange 2010. And Exchange 2010 is a very different beast with the database availability group and cache array. And in the first iteration of 2010 monitoring, we added the functionality to monitor your DAG very completely and the cache role on a particular service, but we did not monitor the cache array as an array of servers providing the cache role. So you know, this concept kind of clustering, if you will. So we've added the ability to also monitor the cache array as an entire entity, and of course each of the individual servers within that cache array. We've added additional details on the health of your DAG, so we've made that visible to users. So all the different database parameters that we were checking, like cluster service, replay service, TCP listener, cluster network quorum group, all these things that we had previously been doing but were done sort of in the background, and the users couldn't get that visibility of each of the individual components of that are now visible to people as well. And then we've added some additional alerts for the Outlook web app and the different connection methods that are utilized. So let's leave that for now, again, because this is mostly intended for a Domino audience. We have later webinars that are going to be more focused on Exchange. And if you are an Exchange shop or you're a Domino shop moving to Exchange, again, I would invite you to either look at some of our other content on the website, some of our other videos. We've got a series of videos coming out about specific detailed SharePoint headaches in a few weeks. Watch for that, or just reach out to myself or one of my team, and we can do a one-on-one session for you as well. Okay, so with that, what I want to do is before we have about 5 or 6 minutes before we get into the Q&A, I want to continue with the What's New discussion and talk about what's new in GSX Analyzer. So for those of you that are existing clients, you know that GSX Monitor and GSX Analyzer are very tightly integrated. They're part of the same tool, although they have sort of different identities. And GSX Monitor is the piece that does the probing and gives you near-term reporting, and GSX Analyzer is the part of the tool that allows you to look at your service level and long-term trends and produce reports to give to management. Okay, and if you are a client and you're not utilizing Analyzer to do that, I would invite you to look at that tool more deeply because your bosses are probably looking for some things, and you could provide it to them in a very seamless way. GSX Monitor feeds information into GSX Analyzer very seamlessly. It's a byproduct of the function of GSX Monitor, and then of course all this data is now here and available. Here we're looking looking at the overview, and again, for those of you that are brand new, the panes are broken down into some KPIs, key performance indicators that we're looking at in gauge format. You can tune that. So if I click on Domino, I have a whole bunch of different KPIs that I like to look at. Availability pie chart. I have an availability bar chart for the 15 most recent periods, which in this case happen to be days or weeks or months, whichever I click on, right? I have a summary of each of my platforms, and in this case I picked Domino, so now I see all the stats for my Domino servers, okay, both vertically and horizontally here, for the day, week, or month. So I mean, most of you know that. That is unchanged. Although I should tell you that in the couple previous versions, we've added some fairly robust tools that you can, by profile, determine who gets to see what. So in this example, I set up as a super admin, so I can see everything. But let's say that you only wanted Steve Eistrand to see the BlackBerry servers and only the 3 servers that are in the U.S. So I've got 7 servers here. So my profile was, I'm only supposed to see these specific servers. That's all I see. So you kind of tailor what people get to see and what they don't get to see in this user interface in a very robust way. I can even suppress pane, so if I don't want the CIO to see the alerts tab because that's far too detailed for her to see on a daily basis, it's going to, it's summary, not detail. So we could suppress the alerts tab if we wanted, or rather the pane of this view, and structure exactly what each individual utilizer of Analyzer can see. That actually is previous functionality that's been around for a little while. But I bring that because if you didn't know you had profiles, you wouldn't know that being able to turn on and turn off, or rather, I guess disable is a better word, profiles, is now available. Previously, you could only delete them, which was problematic if you've created reports that you wanted to use across profiles, and you deleted that profile, you wouldn't be able to utilize those for other people. Now you can turn on and turn off a profile and more easily share templates across profiles. Really cool things that we've added here is this concept of forecasting. And here I'm going to the trends report where I'm looking at a series of statistics over time, and then the dotted lines are not baby fish. This is not the big fish chasing the baby fish, although I think it's absolutely hilarious, so I'd like to use this screen. I'm looking at source data that are solid lines over some period of time, and I'm projecting into the future. And I worked really hard to get this to look cute, but it's not a really good application of the concept of forecasting. You would really have more source data and less forecast, but the idea is to take as a view of data. Let's say you had mail traffic growing. Obviously, it's not growing as a perfect line. It's going up and down and up and down and up and down a little bit. But we that there's a trend, and the idea here is to project that ... into the future. When you take that to a management meeting, everybody gets it very quickly, even though before you would that they could see it here and kind of predict it. Now laying it out in black and white or orange, green, and blue here, it just becomes that much more powerful and descriptive when you're doing capacity planning for the future. And you can do this forecasting function within any okay, so I mentioned this. I said I clicked on New Trend, and I can create one with absolutely everything, or I can utilize one of our templates, or I can take an existing configuration and add something to it. So let's just create a brand new one where the forecasting is. So it's building my whole data dictionary, so it'll take a couple seconds, but you can actually see the forecast tab right here. So what happened is, and again, if you're a user, you already know this, I pick the statistics I want. I pick the ones I want to be graphed, right? So I've got all my statistics for BlackBerry, and I can graph just 2 of them, or all of them, or 5 of them, or whatever I want. So now I see I have my statistics selected, but only 4 of them are going to be graphed, or which servers, over what schedule, over what distribution option. So this would be for a static report that I'm going to create and send to managers, once a day, once a week, once a month, once a quarter. I can create a report that pretty much looks like this underlying screen, but delivered automatically without any additional work on your part. And then I can also now add a forecast to that for some amount of units out in the time. So if I'm looking at a daily report, I can forecast days. If I'm looking at a monthly report, I can forecast months. It's really kind of up to you, but I would caution you that, you don't want to take 2 months and forecast 12 months. Statistically, I hope intuitively we all get that is less likely to be accurate. It would be much better to take 12 months and forecast 2 months. That's going to take a much better picture of this data to project a prediction into the future. But of course, that's up to you and the way you practice your utilization of the tool. We've gone through our 3 minutes, so Carl, I don't know if you've got any questions queued up. And we promised a pretty open-ended 15 minutes at the end here. So we're getting a couple of questions queued up, Carl. I'm just going to do a quick recap. The changes made in GSX Monitor are some of the changes made to the UI. So the change in the form of where some of the functionality is laid out, and I think you can predict. So now there will be more of these added. Performance. There will be more of these added for the platforms that we monitor. Another thing that I'm really excited about is the configuration wizards to help our users and our existing clients go back in time, and maybe you really visited GSX Monitor's configuration was in version 9.1, and here 10.1 is out, and there's been a lot of functionality added in the interim. And you little to turn it all on. Well, now would be a really good time to kind of go through and scroll through and say, oh, wow, was that added? I never turned that on. It's better advantage of what's there. Time zone support, as we had talked about, so you don't have to do interpolation for business hours and maintenance windows relative to wherever monitor is installed, no matter where the target server is. Now, with time zone support, you can eliminate that interpolation and just set your business hours as 9 to 5. In the local time zone in Kuala Lumpur, if that's where the server is located. We are continuing our project to give you statistics views for each server type, and we just add Domino, obviously, Bez, Exchange, Quicker, and SharePoint were added previously. We've added a new module called Domino Change Management, allow you to look for changes made to server documents and the Notes Any file. We've added the scenario statistics, as we talked about, for SharePoint. And then, of course, I would say the biggest thing, or maybe the most exciting thing in Analyzer, is this concept of chasing the little fish and use forecasting. And then, of course, other stuff in the Exchange world, which is for other discussion. So, Carl, throw me some questions.
I'll take our first question here. Can I upgrade directly on my current workstation?
There's no genetic change to that concept. I will add a couple of cautions to you. To be able to do the time zone support, we had to move to the .NET 4 framework. And because of that, Cassini, if you happen to be using, we used to have a Cassini web server embedded with the Analyzer install that you could utilize that. I don't think there's a large percentage of our customer body that chose that, because most people have IIS running somewhere and chose to run Analyzer there on that existing instance of IIS. But I would caution you that Cassini is no longer supported, so that we could add functionality. That if you're running Cassini, you're going to make sure that in either case, you're going to have to make sure that .NET 4 is installed. And if you're using Cassini, you're going to have to install IIS somewhere to be able to run Analyzer. But other than that, yes, the answer is yes.
Okay, I got a follow-up that came in on that, Steve. This one is regarding IIS. Is the configuration part of the installation or upgrade in Monitor?
Is the configuration IIS part of it? Is that what you think?
Yes.
That's what they're asking, Carl?
Yes,
don't include IIS as part of the install pack. So you're going to have to install an IIS server somewhere and run it that way.
What they were getting at was was IIS, the website, configured as part of the installation?
Well, if you want a question, better, Carl, go ahead and make sure you flesh out the answer for them then.
Okay. Yes. If IIS is installed, when you install GSX Monitor, it will go out and configure the website. So there's nothing you've got to do on the IIS side of it. They'll be taken care of automatically.
Okay, so you're saying they're asking if I already have IIS. Okay.
Right. I'll move on to the next question. where can I get the documentation for the new version that describes all the new options?
It's right on our website, and what I'll do, one of the marketing team is on the call. Her name is Juliet. She's done a great job of organizing this. Juliet, I know you can hear me, but probably can't speak, so just if you could make sure that as a follow-up to all the attendees, we send specific links to the doc, and so that they can see the information. By the way, this is going to be recorded, or is being recorded rather, so that on our website you'll be able to review this session. If you found me particularly engaging and decide to hear it all again, you can absolutely do that, or pass it on to other people in the team that they could watch that. It'll probably be about 24 hours before that is up on our website. But again, Juliet, if you could make sure that we send out a follow-up thank you note, et cetera, with the appropriate links to people, that would be great.
Okay, we've got a few more questions that have come in here. This one's regarding wizards. Is it still possible to configure servers in the server settings screen as with previous versions?
Oh, the wizard is meant to be adjunct and easier way, to go through all this stuff, page by page. But that does not disable going right into server settings. And let's say I wanted to go to Domino log scanning settings, I could go right in here and edit it directly here. Or let's say you wanted to, change from your scanning frequency from 7 minutes to 3 minutes for all my servers. I mean, I could still do all the same things I could do before with the Gsx Monitor proper. So none of that is disabled. You absolutely can, if you're used to it that way and you like doing it that way. There's no, you don't have to change. We're not pulling out the rug from underneath you.
A couple questions regarding change management here. The first one, if I upgrade to 10.1, can I use the change management monitoring module right away?
Change monitoring is a separate module. It is actually separately licensed. So if you are an existing client, you're going to have to contact your account manager to get some pricing. That's nominally priced, but it is an additional cost. Change monitoring is not a added functionality. It's an added module. So no, you will not be able to use that right away.
And then the second on that,
you're going to have to purchase it, and your licensing file is going to have to be modified to enable it.
Okay. The second part was change management looks like it can be pretty intensive. Is it best to run this after hours, or what's the standard? Well,
two things. I don't know if that you that was saying change management, Carl, or if that was what the person typed in the chat window. But it's change monitoring very specifically because we're not at all trying to say we're going to manage all aspects of changes made and IDs and things of that nature. What we're trying to do is monitor the changes made. So it's monitoring of changes made to specific databases and the notes INI file in a time interval. So just to make that clear. Depending on the rules you've set up and the documents you're pointing at, it can be fairly intensive on your server. So you may do that after hours or on a limited basis. I would suggest that you tinker with time interval. Depends on what you're trying to do, though. If you're trying to look for security-specific changes and you actually want to be alerting based on that, well, that probably doesn't do you any good to do it once a week, right? So you need to kind of think through the demand on the server, and I'm not about the monitor server. I'm talking about the target servers that are being monitored, and what you're trying to accomplish to determine when you run that. All you want to do is keep a running log of changes made. I mean, like let's say you want to know that server settings were changed. IBM has given you a fix that you're supposed to make these 8 changes to a server document, and you want to make sure that it's being made because you've got a junior admin doing it, and you want to just see that report that those changes were or were not made. Then it's probably safe to do that once a day at night, in hours. If you're trying to look for something security specific, you got to play with the interval to get to what you want. So, I mean, a long story. It can be very server intensive, so you have to be careful about when you schedule it. Absolutely.
Okay. The next question here is, how can you configure GSX to send an alert message to a cell phone or external email?
Okay, well, that's pretty easy. Anywhere where you can establish alerts, okay, in this case, got it disabled. All right, so let's just enable this. I'm accessing an alert profile. Let's say we're going to utilize the alert profile called default, but it can be whatever one you want. It's called, let's look up the one called Bez Team, okay? So I'm sending an email, in this case, sending an email to somebody specific. Let's say I want to send an email to a list of the entire admin team. So here's all my choices, and here's what I'm actually doing. So I am sending an email to one individual and also to a distribution list. I'm sending SMS text to these phones, and one of them looks like it belongs to John Doe. Oh, I don't want John Doe in there. I can pull them out, or I can stick them in here. So I'm, in this case, utilizing two of my alert types, but here's my other alert types. So that question must have come from somebody who has not used GSX Monitor. So let's flesh this out. We can send email alerts to individuals or lists. We can send SMS messages to cell phones, Blackberries, iPhones, whatever it happens to be. I can launch another program and send a command line to it. I can play a sound on the monitoring server. It's only really useful if somebody's in the room, so I wouldn't make that your only alert type. I can send pop-up messages to Windows workstations. If I have the optional SNMP module, I can send traps to SCOM or Tivoli or Nagios or BMC Patrol or whatever other SNMP compliant infrastructure monitoring tool you have. And then, of course, I have other things where I can schedule this stuff, but I don't want to get into all that. That wasn't the question. So this is where you would set that up. And then once you set up that profile or modified a profile, wherever that profile is applied, is now follow the rules that I've done. So in this case, they're all disabled, but because it's done. But if I was using Profile 17 and I have applied to all 50 of my servers, if I tweak it to add an extra email address, all of those will be affected instantaneously. So we got about 3 or 4 minutes left. So.
All right, I've got a few more questions that are coming in here. Really quick regarding Analyzer, if I have an existing report created in Analyzer, can I add forecasting to it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Remember, if you notice that when I went to add a trend, I can take an existing trend and then modify it. And then, I don't know if I have an existing one out here. Let's get an okay, so I have Exchange Cluster Availability trend that I've already created. So it's going to come up with all the settings that I've previously set up. So all my statistics will already be set, okay, and I'm on BlackBerry, so they're over here on the Exchange tab somewhere, or Exchange Cluster maybe. Okay, so here's the statistics that we've already set up for Exchange, and then now if I want to add forecasting, it's as simple as going here and saying I want to enable forecasting for whatever time unit I want to. So it's pretty easy to do.
Okay, I follow up on the alert, cell phone or external email question from before. What if some TP server was down?
Okay, so if we go back to, I don't want to go back to the page. Well, I guess I will. I'll go back to the page. The whole concept of alerting, the reason we give you all these methods is that you want to have multiple ways to get the word out. So let me give you a very simple example. If I'm utilizing email as my only alert method and email is down, I kind of can't tell anybody about it, right? Now, first of all, you can set up an alternate path so that it's smart enough to know that if server 7 is down and that's the path that we're normally sending email out, that it will seek the alternate path. So there's that, first of all. But I would suggest that you have redundant alerting methodologies. So I'm not just sending email, I'm also sending SMS text, I'm also doing this, I'm also doing several different types of ways so that if one resource is down and that's the very resource that we notify you with, well, we should have had a redundant alert methodology, and that's why all these choices are here, and you definitely should configure overlapping and redundant alert methodologies so that if one resource is down, you still get the word out. There's even a GSM modem choice, which I don't have it set up, but because I don't have a GSM modem plugged in. But if I wanted to get word out and every other communication methodology is down because that server room is cut off, I still hope to get a GSM connection and get the contact out through my GSM modem. So you would want to have overlapping and redundant alerting and notification methodologies. That functionality is all right here. You just have to set it up the way you want it. I hope I answered that question adequately. Anything else?
We've got a question here.
Another minute or so here. Carol.
Is there a way to send an alert when the original condition we were alerted on is no longer occurring?
Oh, absolutely. If you actually right here, trigger this alert if the Domino is down, trigger this alert if Domino is up, trigger this alert if the network is down, trigger this alert if the network is up is just one example. So I would say I think I'm accurate when I'm saying we have a reciprocal up alert for every down condition. If I'm wrong about that, it's very few situations. I can't think of any actually off the top of my head. So we pretty much follow that rubric that if we tell something's down, we should also tell you when it's no longer down, it's back up. So if let's say you have an alert that goes to the whole admin team and there's 7 people to get the down alert, one person's on call, one person fixes it. The whole admin team also gets the up alert, so everyone can say, ah, and breathe a sigh of relief and no longer worry about it. Okay, Fred did his thing, or Mary Jean did her thing and fixed it. This is, by the way, a concept of escalation within alerting, so that if, let's say, Steve Bystrom is the junior admin, he gets the alerts. If he can't fix it in some time interval, then we can issue another alert to management or maybe the senior team so that Carl can step in and help me because I couldn't figure it out. And it's already been down for 14 minutes before we bother him because he's got more important things to do. And Steve, the flunky guy, couldn't get it done. So Carl steps in and waves his magic wand and gets it fixed right away. And then blah, blah, blah. Carl, you look good here, pal.
Got a quick follow-up on that regarding queued messages, not just up-down conditions. So in the in the Domino queues, we get above a threshold and then back below it. Does it apply the same way?
Okay, I guess they're talking about if pending messages go above what we would consider an acceptable, quote-unquote, normal value, and then it goes down below that value, yeah, there's a reciprocal alert there as well. I think that they're probably asking the queue is what it seems like they're asking. One more here. We're actually past the time, but if you got more question there, Carl, find find one that's exciting.
All right, let me take a look. There's a couple questions left here. My man keeps asking for SLA reports. I'm not sure what to give her. What do you offer for that kind of a report?
Okay, in Analyzer, first of all, we kind of talked about a little bit where we could send to a distribution list. So first, you could give your manager access to Analyzer, setting up, like you said it was a her, so setting up a profile for her that looks at, and if you're clustered, by the way, I wouldn't give her access to Domino. I would give her access to Domino clusters or Exchange clusters. So, because the individual server, one of the members of the cluster might be down, but we're still providing services to the users. So, by giving the individual server visibility might confuse you. So, I would probably set up that profile that he's only looking at the clusters, which is more indicative of the service we're giving to our users. If you want to just give her reports, I would create a trend for her. And again, when we want that wizard, you can select the specific statistic you want, how often you want that to run. So let's say you want to give her monthly numbers and then put her in the distribution list to get a very specifically targeted report with only the statistics that make sense. Not graph. Remember, we could add a little graph here over the time period you want to her and whomever else in the management team. It also happens to be the environmental health tab. We can establish, in this case, I'm looking at a Domino availability for all servers at one time, and the SLA here in the sort of the tan little bars is server uptime in a 24-hour period. You can define whatever you want to be the statistic that is your SLA. Now, some make more sense than others, but we are going to let you do that. And the green bars below here are key performance indicators that are making the SLA what it is, right? So we're green for everything, which is great, but our KPIs are in the red. So we, lucky right now. We better start minding the store on, okay, my availability index is falling below acceptable thresholds. I don't know that we have time now. We're already 5 minutes over to really fully answer that, but there's several different ways that you can provide your manager with SLA visibility. The first thing would be is what does she think an SLA is? And in this case, we're saying it's server uptime, and that's a pretty good metric for availability. But maybe she's thinking about, mail traffic transit times. Well, we could set that up as well. You got to decide what are the stats that she wants, and then we can show you how to provide that to her. For overtime, so apologize for that. I want to mention again that we never expected to tell you absolutely everything you'd want to know about GSX Monitor and Analyzer. So back in the beginning, I invited you to reach out to myself or to our sales team or on our website, do a contact request, and we do a one-on-one session, whether it's with myself or with another one's a member of the technical team, the sales team, to walk you through a complete picture of how GSX Monitor and Analyzer can help you maximize the benefits your company gets out of your collaboration infrastructure that you've paid for. So we'll make that offer, and hopefully you can take us up on it. Hopefully this has been useful, and thanks again for your time.
Thank you for your attendance today. At the end of this webinar, please take a minute to fill out a short evaluation. And, Lee was saying, take a look around our website. We've got a little more information there. And feel free to contact us and let us know if you have any other questions. Well, thank you much.